Hi, my name's Pat, alcoholic. Thank you, Beck, for hosting the meeting. Um, a lot of you have seen me in the rooms for, what's it been? It's been, I guess, maybe about a year since I found, maybe a little longer, since I found an all-night place. I live in Taiwan right now, and um, remember when I first came here and I was trying to go to meetings, I went to there were some 24/7 online meetings, but there was just so many bombers, and I had a really traumatic experience with a bomber. It was, I don't even want to talk about it. It was very messed up. I and eventually I found this place, and it's been such a relief to have these meetings because there is no AA in Taiwan. They do not have the same problems with addiction that we have in America, where I'm from. And it's just been so nice to come in here and get support and continue to extend my sobriety and to continue to work the steps. Tomorrow, I'm going to have 3 years, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited about getting another year. It's the 17th where I'm at right now, so the 18th will be my 3 years. And you know, it was it's I love drugs and alcohol, and it was really, really hard to um it was really hard to stop using drugs and alcohol uh because they made me feel good. And it was uh it was a major coping mechanism for me. It was something that helped me, that I felt helped me with my life. But uh, the truth is just that I was not a safe user, and I could not use safely, um, and I had to figure out a different way to live my life because my substance use was harming me more than it was harming anybody else. Um, when I was a kid, I had a my my childhood. In my childhood, I was exposed to addiction. My mom's an alcoholic, and it was it was really a challenge. It was really challenging. I had a really challenging upbringing, and um, it really impacted my self-esteem and self-doubt. Uh, and I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of anger. And I sought refuge in drugs and alcohol. And um, it, I felt it made me feel good. But I got to a point in my life where I just wanted, my life wasn't the way that I wanted it to be. And when I started going to the meetings and I stopped doing drugs, my life got a whole lot better. When I was a kid, it was just very difficult. I just shut down emotionally. I didn't know how I felt, and I had a lot of anxiety, and I was scared. And uh, my mom was, and my parents were very abusive. My mom was often drunk. I couldn't get my needs met. Um, and my mom did get sober. And when she got sober, I was a few years later, I was a kid, and I was very much wanted to do what my older brothers were doing, and my older brothers were smoking pot, and they encouraged me to smoke pot. So then I started smoking pot, um, and drinking because I wanted to be like my older brothers, and uh, and then my mom, who was sober at that point, decided to start drug testing me, and um, I took that I was very angry about being drug tested. So I cheated all the drug tests with other people's urine, and I sold pot when I was young. For when I was like 14. They started they started drug testing me, and when I was 14, and after that I was so pissed off. My brothers were also encouraging me to sell pot because they thought it'd be cool. And I sold some weed with my brother. And what really bothered me about the drug testing was that my brother was held to a different standard than me, and he was like captain of the football team, and he would just never get in trouble. We would get caught for the same things, and I would get in so much trouble. And then my brother wouldn't be in trouble. And I felt a deep sense of unfairness of why am I treated like this? And then then something happened when I was 18. My brother was a real overachiever, and he was working as like on a football team coaching staff up at Penn State, which is a really impressive gig at 20 years old. He had a lot of his college paid for. And my brother lost his mind, and he jumped off a building, and um, he survived in a vegetative state. I was 18. I was in high school. And it was extremely difficult situation. And I I was I had a very contentious relationship with my parents, and my brother being in a vegetative state, uh, well, they told me he was going to get better, and he was never good. My parents didn't share actual prognoses or what was going on. They really couldn't accept that my brother was never going to get better, or that they should. The doctors tried to encourage them to end his life, take him off life support, but my parents wouldn't do it. And he made a very minimal recovery. He never became what you would consider conscious again. Um, uh, and I, this was when I was supposed to go to college, and um, what's I am an addict, um, but I never had when this happened. I'm trying to think when my habitual use stopped. Um, it it was a very much a wake up call experience for me, and all of my story is not really tied around so much drug use as mental illness and depression and stress, though addiction is a part of it. Um, but it was I stayed with my brother every day in the hospital while he was in that state, and then he moved home, and it was it was very difficult for me to go to college and move on with my life. I deferred my first semester because I thought he was going to get better, and I wanted to help him learn how to speak and learn how to help him with his therapy. And I don't know at what point I realized he wasn't going to get better, but I tried going to school, and I dropped out. I was afraid of how much money I'd owe, and so I would spend. I kept going back and forth to my house and somewhere else. I would live at my house And then I lived in Chicago for like 6 months. I kept going back and forth from my home to living somewhere else, and my parents' home. And I used to go to the beach and work at my grandparents' beach house. And I didn't tell anybody what was going on. And I just remember like feeling how good it felt to be normal again. Like nobody has to talk to me about, no one knows about what is going on at my house or my brother, and getting an escape from that situation and how that made me feel. And during that time, my mom tried to kill herself when I was in the house. And that is, it was about 4 years. This went on for like 4 years. And it was just very, it was just very difficult knowing that my brother was having these seizures, and it was just very difficult knowing he could die, being in a crisis again and again, for 4 years on end was a lot more than I could really handle. And about 4 years into it, I learned more information about how my parents had not told me what the prognosis was. I learned about that we could cut off food and water to my brother, and um, he could uh, he could pass away. Um, and uh, I I was, when I learned that, it was immediately like I became very, I had strong convictions that my brother would not want this. He was suffering a lot. He had terrible seizures and muscle spasms, and he couldn't speak for himself. And I, I, um, I felt very strongly he would have wanted to die in that condition, and that I knew that I wouldn't want to live like that, and that was really enough for me. And my brother was my best friend, um, so it was not something I took lightly. And I when I really pressed my family members for it, I was kicked out of the house. I was hit. I was thrown out into the street, and people call me crazy. And I still have to deal with those accusations and false accusations for what I did, even now. Um, but uh, but I followed through. I followed through with it, and I don't regret doing it, but it was extremely painful for me. And I even went as far as, once we started the process, there's a high rate of families not being able to follow through with it. It's really difficult to follow through with it. And I promised my parents I was going to kill myself if we didn't see it to the end. And and it was awful. And when he after he died, I had a during that time I had just had a complete nervous breakdown. I had psychosis. I had to be hospitalized. And afterwards, I didn't know if I could live with it. And I was super depressed. And um, I still had to, I didn't get a lot of sympathy or support from family members. And I'm still bothered by that. Uh, not as much as I would like. And, and I was super depressed. And the next 4 years, was sad. I was on and off trying to get sober in meetings and smoking pot. But my drug use was at its worst when I was a kid. And then maybe at periods during my brother's state. But once I had that nervous breakdown, my addiction never became as prolonged as it was before. I would get I would go through periods where I would come to the meetings, I wouldn't work the steps. I'd be afraid to share. I would sit in the meetings because just wanted some support. Maybe I just wanted to be around people. And you know, and then I and then it's 6 months to it would go be like 6 months to like a year and a half later after stopping, I would just convince myself, hey, I'm not an addict, and I would just go back to my pot use and um, do other drugs too and drink. But then it would only last a few weeks, and then I'd be really miserable, and I'd be like, I'd be smoking, I'd be high at work again, just not able to control my drug use, just wanting to constantly be putting something in. And then I would stop, and then I would come back to the meetings, and I would do it all over again. And a couple times I would get to step like 6 or 7. Um, and then I would quit. Maybe once I got to 6 or 7, and I would before I quit. Even though I was one time, I think I was sober a year and a half, and I never did this. I got to maybe step 6 or 7. I didn't finish the steps. And then after 4 years after my brother died, I got a really great job, and I got money, and I had a career success. And I almost got rich once, and I remember not even wanting the position, the thing, and being like, I really I've always wanted to be an actor or writer, and so then I started. So then that was the last time when I didn't get that, and I quit weed, and I started going to an acting school, um, and then that was like 3. Oh, that was 3 years ago, and then I started going to an acting school, and then I left that job, and I I've I decided I wanted to uh, do something fun and take a year off because I never got to go to college, and I just always been doing stressful thing. I've been just wanted to change my environment for a year or two. So I moved to Taiwan. I taught English. I've been traveling around Asia a little bit, and I'm on the tail end of this year and a half off, and I'm about to go back home to go back to the acting school to what I was doing. And um, I'm I came to these meetings to just to continue to work on my sobriety, and it's been almost 3 years, but I definitely struggle with the resentment part of it. Um, and for me, that's the biggest thing I want to work on this next year. Um, and it's um, just it's easy to I dwell on those things, and that I can't control, that I can't change, and it eats into my daily life. And you know, what's important to me is my life, I guess, moving forward. And uh, that I'm still angry at my parents, and but it's wasting my time. I'm not getting anything in return for being angry. And out of all the things, that's definitely something I want to work on. I don't think my life has become perfect because I stopped using drugs. I'm still trying to build a better life for myself, and build a better support network for myself. And it's just a slow process, but um, it's when I look at all the things I've got, I like to focus on the negative and my anger and this, that, and the next thing. I mean, um, but in reality, I mean, I'm gonna talk about positive things about coming to AA and getting sober. I mean, um, I didn't have any self-esteem when I started um, getting sober, and now I do. And that would have never happened if I was still doing drugs. I would have just sought refuge in the drugs. I wouldn't have sought therapy. I wouldn't have uh, tried to get the support I need. I mean, I, I wanted to die, before I started coming to meetings, and yeah, I'm really happy. I'm really happy to not be depressed anymore. I haven't really been depressed in a long time. And I used to have tons and tons of anxiety, social anxiety, all sorts of anxiety. And even though I have a way to go, I don't experience don't experience what I experienced in my addiction. I don't experience it anymore. It took a long time for those things to go away. And but like my life is my life was fucking horrible when I started coming. I didn't have anything. I was broke. I was been institutionalized for a long time. Um, and that's not my life anymore. My life kicks ass. Live in Taiwan's awesome. It's really fun here. I've been traveling. Saw India, Malaysia for a while. Um, I've had I've had one serious relationship. It was enjoyable. I was really bad at dating before I got sober. It didn't still struggle for me sometimes, but um, yeah, I really didn't have anything till I got sober, and it was just coming to the meetings and meeting the right people to help me. And um, I just matured from listening to people share. I remember when I started, I still have a problem of just making it all about me and focusing on myself. But just going to enough meetings, eventually, you just I started identifying more with other people, and it's really been a great space for me to grow up in. And I, uh, I just wanted, before I end my share, I want to tell like another positive story, and on a positive note. I first started coming to meetings when I was 22, and this was after my brother died, and it was after I'd been hospitalized. It was after I was struggling with suicidality. Uh, I didn't know if I could. I didn't know whether I could live following my brother's death, live with how much pain I felt in how it transpired. And I went to a meeting, and there was this guy, and he had these self-harm scars on his wrist. And he came up to me after the meeting because I shared about that I was depressed, and he showed me his scars. And he said, these are my suicide scars and attempted suicide scars. He said, and I'm proud of them. It means I'm a survivor. And then a few months maybe a long time went by, and at one point I'm back in the meetings and I'm trying to get a sponsor. And I had all these numbers on my phone, and it had person's name and AA. So I had a list of just AA numbers. There was a friend of mine from high school who'd been sober for a little bit, really great guy. And so I hit him up first, and I was like, hey, could you sponsor me? He's like, yeah, sure, I could sponsor you. But he's like, first thing you got to do, go to 5 meetings a week. And then I said, all right, sorry, man, I need a different sponsor. I'm not doing 5 meetings a week, maybe 1. And then I went to my phone, and I just started randomly dialing down this list of AA numbers. And the first person that picked up was the guy who showed me the scars. And I said, hey, can you, I saw you in a meeting, can you be my sponsor? And he said, yeah, sure. What's amazing is that he's really, because of his job, he's never really available. So it's amazing he even just picked up this random number calling him. But I've been working with the same sponsor for 10 years, and he's really been the best mentor I could ever ask for. He's helped me with everything. I've gotten amazingly lucky that he's my sponsor. And I really don't know. I really look up to him, and I don't know if I'd have gotten how I would have navigated a lot of things I've navigated without his support. And like about 2 years into working with this guy who's just always there to help me out, I realized we always talk about me, and I never talked about him ever. And I was just like, I can't believe I've never asked you. I was like, Jack, what is your job? I don't even know what you do. And he told me, he's a doctor in psychology. He runs a PTSD clinic. And I was like, holy shit, I was like, man, that was a real stroke of luck for me to get that guy in my life at that point, and I didn't even know it. And I just wanted to end on a positive AA story, and that's part of my story. And thank you guys for letting me share, and thank you guys for helping me continue to recover. It's not a straight line, and I really appreciate. I'm so fortunate to have these rooms. It would have been much more difficult staying sober and working on myself without having these Zoom meetings. So thank you guys so much for all you've done for me. With that, I'll wrap up my share and pass it along.